Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. No complicated techniques, no expensive tools, no years of training, just a simple sound. A sound so ordinary that you've probably done it without thinking. Humming. That soft vibration you make when you're bored, relaxed, or lost in thought. It seems almost meaningless, doesn't it? Just a quiet noise in the background of your life. But what if I told you that this tiny, almost forgettable act is quietly triggering a chain reaction inside your brain? What if, in just 60 seconds, something begins to shift? Your stress, your focus, even the way your mind feels from the inside. Not in a mystical or exaggerated way, but in a deeply physical, measurable, and surprisingly powerful way. You see, we often believe that changing our mental state requires something big, something dramatic. We think it takes intense effort, discipline, or complex methods. But nature has a strange sense of humor. Sometimes the most profound changes begin with the simplest actions. A breath, a rhythm, a vibration, and humming is all three. In the next few moments, we're going to explore what actually happens inside your brain when you hum for just 1 minute. Not guesses, not vague ideas, but real mechanisms, hidden processes that most people never notice. By the time you reach the end, you may never look at this simple sound the same way again. You might think humming is something trivial, something people do absent-mindedly while waiting, walking, or trying to pass time. But inside your body, something surprisingly complex begins to unfold the moment you produce that soft, steady vibration. The first thing that quietly comes to life is a long, wandering nerve that stretches from your brain down into your chest and abdomen, touching your heart, your lungs, your digestive system, like an invisible thread stitching your internal world together. This is the vagus nerve, and it behaves less like a simple wire and more like a communication highway, constantly carrying signals between your brain and your body. When you hum, the vibration you create in your throat and face doesn't just stay local. It gently stimulates this nerve, like tapping on a cable that runs deep into your core. That stimulation tells your brain something very specific. You are safe. And when the brain receives that signal, it begins to shift its entire mode of operation, moving away from urgency, tension, and alertness, and toward calm, restoration, and balance. Your heart rate may slow slightly, your breathing becomes more rhythmic, and your body begins to loosen its grip on stress without you consciously deciding to relax. At the same time, something equally fascinating is happening in your nose, a place you probably never associate with thinking or intelligence. As you hum, the air inside your nasal cavities begins to vibrate, and this vibration dramatically increases the production of a molecule called nitric oxide. Now, this molecule is not just a random chemical floating around. It plays a crucial role in how oxygen moves through your body. Nitric oxide helps expand your blood vessels, allowing more oxygen to travel efficiently to different tissues, including your brain. Imagine your brain as a city that depends on a constant supply of fuel. The better the roads and the smoother the traffic, the more efficiently that fuel arrives. Humming, in a way, improves the traffic system. More oxygen reaches your brain cells, and with more oxygen, those cells can function more effectively, process information more clearly, and maintain their health. What appears to be a simple sound is actually improving the environment in which your brain operates. But the story becomes even more interesting when you look at the electrical activity inside your brain. Your brain is not silent. It is constantly producing waves of electrical patterns, shifting between different frequencies depending on what you are doing and how you are feeling. When you are stressed, anxious, or highly alert, your brain tends to operate in faster, more chaotic patterns known as beta waves. These are useful when you need to react quickly, solve problems, or deal with immediate challenges. But staying in this state for too long can be exhausting. Humming introduces a subtle shift. The steady rhythm of your breath combined with the vibration of your voice begins to nudge your brain towards slower, more stable patterns called alpha waves. These are the same patterns often observed in meditation, in moments of quiet focus, or when you feel deeply relaxed yet aware. It is as if humming gently guides your brain out of noise and into harmony, not by force, but by rhythm. While this shift is taking place, another process begins quietly in the background. Your body, which may have been producing stress hormones like cortisol, starts to dial that production down. Cortisol is useful when you need it, It prepares your body for action, increases alertness, and helps you respond to challenges. But when it lingers for too long, it becomes a burden, weighing down your mind and body. Humming acts like a signal that tells your system to ease off. The reduction in cortisol is not dramatic or sudden, but it is steady, like turning down the volume of a loud noise little by little. As cortisol levels decrease, your mind begins to feel less cluttered, your thoughts less rushed, and your overall sense of tension begins to soften. This is not magic. It is a physiological response to a simple, repeatable action. Now consider the vibrations themselves, the actual sound you produce when you hum. These vibrations travel through your skull, your sinuses, your throat, and even into your chest. They are not just heard, they are felt. This internal resonance creates a kind of synchronization within your nervous system. Think of an orchestra where each instrument is playing slightly out of sync. The result is noise. But when a conductor brings them into alignment, the same instruments produce music. The vibrations from humming act like that conductor. They provide a steady, predictable pattern that your brain and body can align with. Neurons, which communicate through electrical signals, are influenced by rhythmic input. When you introduce a consistent vibration, it can help coordinate these signals, encouraging a more organized pattern of activity. This is not something you consciously notice, but it contributes to a sense of coherence, a feeling that things inside you are working together rather than pulling in different directions. As all of this unfolds, your emotional state begins to shift as well. Emotions are not just abstract experiences, they are deeply tied to chemical processes in your brain. When you hum, especially in a relaxed and steady way, your brain may begin to release small amounts of neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, which are associated with pleasure, satisfaction, and emotional balance. You might not suddenly feel overwhelming joy, but there can be a subtle lift, a lightness that wasn't there before. It is the difference between carrying a heavy bag and setting it down without even realizing how much it was weighing you down. This emotional regulation happens without effort, without analysis, without trying to fix anything. It emerges from the simple act of producing a sound. There is also something deeply interesting about the relationship between breathing and humming. When you hum, your exhalation naturally becomes longer and more controlled. Instead of quick, shallow breaths, you are extending your breath outward in a smooth, continuous flow. This extended exhalation has a direct impact on your nervous system. It reinforces the calming signals sent through the vagus nerve, creating a feedback loop where your breathing supports relaxation, and relaxation further smooths your breathing. In a way, humming teaches your body how to breathe more effectively without giving it instructions. It doesn't require technique or training. The act itself contains the lesson. If you think about it, all of this is happening in just 60 seconds. Not hours of practice, not complicated exercises, but 1 minute of sustained, gentle humming. In that short span, your body shifts from tension toward calm. Your brain transitions toward more stable patterns, your chemistry adjusts, your oxygen flow improves, and your emotional state begins to rebalance. It challenges the assumption that meaningful changes require complex interventions. Sometimes, the simplest actions tap into the most fundamental systems. And there is another layer to this that is easy to overlook. Humming is self-generated. It doesn't come from an external source, it comes from you. That means you are not just receiving an effect, you are creating it. There is a quiet sense of control in that, a realization that you can influence your internal state using nothing more than your own voice. This is not about replacing other methods of relaxation or mental clarity, but it shows that your body is equipped with built-in mechanisms for regulation, waiting to be activated. As you continue to hum, even beyond 60 seconds, these effects can deepen. The rhythm becomes more familiar, the vibrations more integrated, and the shifts in your body more noticeable. What began as a simple sound becomes a tool, not in a mechanical sense, but in a natural, almost intuitive way. It is as if your body recognizes the pattern and responds more readily each time. So when you hum, you are not just making a sound to fill silence. You are engaging a network that spans your brain, your nerves, your breath, your chemistry, and your emotions. You are sending signals that reshape how your body operates in that moment. And perhaps the most surprising part is not that this happens, but that it has been available all along, hidden in something so ordinary that it is easy to dismiss. So now, when you think back to that simple act, just a quiet hum, you can no longer see it as something trivial or meaningless. In just 60 seconds, you've seen how your body begins to shift its state, how your brain gently moves from noise toward clarity, how your breath, your nerves, and your chemistry start working together in a kind of quiet harmony. What seemed ordinary reveals itself as something deeply connected to the way you feel, think, and function. And perhaps the most powerful realization is this: you don't need to wait for the perfect moment, the perfect environment, or the perfect solution to begin changing how you feel. You already carry a tool within you, something simple, accessible, and always available. A single minute, a single sound can be the beginning of a shift. Not because it solves everything instantly, but because it reminds you that change doesn't always come from complexity. Sometimes it begins with the smallest, most overlooked actions. So the next time your mind feels crowded, your thoughts feel heavy, or your energy feels scattered, you might pause, not to escape, but to experiment. Just 60 seconds, just a hum, and notice what begins to change. Good luck exploring this for yourself, and thank you for your time, your curiosity, and your willingness to look deeper into something so simple, yet so powerful.